Welcome to the Love Spark podcast. We are your hosts, Tonya
and Stevi Maveros.
If you want to hear a Midwest millennial couple talk through real practice and exploration of relationship tools and resources,
and if you appreciate a bit of authentic and vulnerable commentary along the way,
then the Love Spark podcast is for you. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you are listening, as well as give us a 5-star rating and letting us know what you learned. It really helps out the show.
Also, don't forget to visit the website, milovespark.com, to check out upcoming events, workshops, and opportunities to ask us questions.
You can also follow us at Love Spark Dates on Instagram and Facebook.
All right, let's dive into this week's chapter of The 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work by Dr. John Gottman and Nan Silver.
Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. If you are if you're just joining us, we have been covering the 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by John M. Gottman, PhD, and Nan Silver. I feel like it is like a foundational book for every couple, to be honest. It should be.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a great starting place if you are looking for help navigating marriage.
Fair enough. And currently we are on chapter 8, which is not an actual principle. So the book gives information, but then it also gives principles. And so that's where we're at right now. So if you're just tuning in, jump back to episode 1 is where we begin diving into all of these things.
Yes. But today we are on page 137, chapter 8.
The 2 kinds of marital conflict. So the other thing that happens is that for those of you that have been with us, you know this. If you're new to this, we like to read passages from the book, discuss those, but also we are doing the workbooks for the couples, which gives you activities and exercises. And so chapter 8 is actually pretty limited when it comes to exercises, but there is a lot of great information for conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
So shall we dive in to chapter 8, 2 kinds of marital conflict?
Yeah, we should dive in.
Okay, so on page 138 in the book, Perpetual Problems. Unfortunately, the majority of marital conflicts fall into this category, 69% to be exact. Time and again, at 4-year follow-ups, we'd find couples still arguing about precisely the same issues. They'd alter their hairstyles, don new clothes, and gained or lost a few pounds and wrinkles, but they were still having the same argument. It was as if 4 years had passed it was as if 4 minutes had passed rather than 4 years. Here are some typical perpetual problems that happy couples in our studies were living with. Meg wants to have a baby, but Donald says he's not ready yet and doesn't know if he will ever be. Walter wants sex far more frequently than Dana. Chris is lax about housework and rarely does his share of the chores until Susan nags him, which makes him angry. Tony wants to raise their children as Catholics. Jessica is Jewish and wants their children to follow her faith. Angie thinks Ron is too critical of their son, but Ron thinks he has the right approach. Their son has to be taught the proper way to do things. Can I just say?
End quote.
End quote. Out of this entire list, I truly, truly believed, and maybe still do a little bit, I could be wrong, clearly as the book says, that if 2 people could not agree on having children, then I really didn't believe them. They should be together. Like, that is a very fundamental thing for a lot of people. But then we just got done watching season 10 of Love is Blind. And Mike was very, very clear that he was going to have kids and that he did not want to be with somebody who didn't want children. Yeah. But he ended up dating Emma, who was very, very clear she was not having kids. But then by the end of the show, came around to the idea of potentially having kids, but then after being with him, she could see kids in their future. And so Clearly, happy people and happy couples can remain together and still have the same argument about whether or not they're going to have kids. To me, mind blowing.
My perspective on the issue is I think it really depends on how strongly you feel about the issue. Your
Mm-hmm.
the depth and intensity of your feelings about having children or adopting children or whatever may have you or not having children,
Uh-huh.
I think that that plays a much stronger role in how serious the problem is than whether you really agree on a timeline or not.
That's fair. I can agree with that.
If that
No, it does make sense. And I just I got to be honest still. Even going to school, and I haven't crossed this particular issue within studies, but deep down inherently in my body, I still feel like I can't imagine. But you know what? Actually, I
mm,
still feel like I can't imagine a couple remaining together if one person is very confident they want to have kids. Now, what I will say is within this context, it said that they were happy couples. That's not
mm-hmm,
to say that they won't eventually break up. And it's not to say that you can't be happy while still having this conflict. I guess overall for myself, I just look at the end result versus am I happy now in this moment? Because I think
mm,
about it from the context of Meg, who wants to have a baby. We are all very well aware women have very limited time frames or windows to do that. Even with like modern medicine, you can save your eggs and freeze your eggs and all those different things, but there's still something to be said about having babies at a point in time where you can be very active with your children as they're younger. And so I still find it very difficult to accept that Meg and Donald will remain together if he doesn't ultimately eventually say yes to a baby.
mm.
Because I feel like four
Yeah,
years in, because this
I
is a
think
study
you're
of,
right. The
yeah,
resentment would
yeah.
build. Well, it says every 4 years,
Right.
so
This,
who
but I
knows how
think that a
long.
lot of, maybe it might have been before, but I felt like this was newlyweds, right? But anyhow,
Mm,
I just find it hard. Can't.
yeah. To me, I much more understand like on page 139 where
Mm-hmm.
they talk about the couple in the center paragraph. Quote, another happy couple, Carmen and Bill, have a perpetual problem over their disparate degrees of orderliness.
Mm-hmm.
Carmen has the discipline of a drill sergeant, while her husband is a classic absent minded professor. End quote.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, to me, that is kind of the epitome example of
Oh, right.
perpetual argument, right?
Yes.
One person is neater, one person is less neat.
Mm-hmm.
I think for you and I, it's funny because we have different things that we are neater about than the other person.
True, for sure. What do share? What are those things?
Well, I just like I try not to spread out as much. And I
Mm-hmm.
think you tend to like claim an area
Mm-hmm.
as your zone 2 spread out, which is fine, but
Yeah.
like, or you and Kieran don't stack the dishes like the way that I would stack the dishes. Like the way you put things in the sink is not orderly to me.
Oh my gosh, the way that you put things in the sink make no sense to me. I love you.
So yeah, that's fine. But point being,
Well,
to me, that's more of a like perpetual
yeah,
problem
that's how I feel
than
about it
like
too.
I would certainly say that agreeing on whether or not to have kids is probably something you should work out before you decide if you're gonna marry.
Agreeing on what faith you're going to raise your children in, I feel like is something that should be worked out before you are married.
Yeah.
You know, I appreciate, but I think when I look at this, I do appreciate that the focus is that they're happy couples, right?
Yeah.
And at this point, they haven't ended the relationship or the marriage, but it doesn't mean that it isn't possible. Whereas I feel like you're right. What we're talking about with Carmen and Bill and the
Mhm.
cleanliness, that I feel like is a very common problem within a household
Yeah.
for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
I do like at the bottom of the paragraph, it says, in other words, they are constantly working it out for the most part good naturedly. At times it gets better, on occasion it gets worse, but because they keep acknowledging the problem and talking about it, they prevent it from overwhelming their relationship.
I think they make a really good point about that, that like regardless of how perpetual the problem is,
Mm-hmm.
the important part is, can you disagree in a good natured
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
especially if it's going to be a problem forever.
Right.
you
Which
know
leads me to the quote by psychologist Dan Weil, said it best in his book, After the Honeymoon. When choosing a long term partner, you will inevitably be choosing a particular set of unsolvable problems that you'll be grappling with for the next 10, 20, or 50 years. And despite what many therapists will tell you, you don't have to resolve your major marital conflicts for your marriage to thrive.
right.
So I do appreciate covering those things. I think that in talking to a lot of the people that I know who are married, it is something. It is something, the perpetual problems. And I feel like every major person that I know, every married person that I know,
Mm-hmm.
the one that they always talk about is definitely tidiness and
Oh
cleanliness,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it took a long time for me to not be annoyed about socks being all over the house, but I also feel like there aren't socks all over the house nearly as much as there used to be.
There are not. Thank you.
So, but now I'm more apt to leave socks around the house, which is weird transition for me, but like,
I don't even know why
I
that
don't
was a
know.
whole thing. There was a time where, like, you know what it was? It was like I'd be just hanging out and my feet would feel like they were suffocating. So I would just kick my socks off and let my toes wiggle free. But
Mm,
then I would always forget to pick them up. And then it was just eventually socks everywhere. I have no idea why it was not even in my line of sight
you
in
know,
my brain.
probably also was worse when we had a carpeted house.
That's exact. Yeah.
Now that we
Yeah.
have hardwood,
That's very true.
makes a difference.
Because the Herbison house, my
Mhm.
apartment, your house on far end,
Mhm.
and then
The
the
duplex.
duplex
Yeah.
all had carpeting.
Yep.
Oh my god, look it, we solved you solved my problem.
Sometimes it's just a weird little change in your environment that makes all the difference in the world.
100%.
Yeah. So I think that, it's a really good point to make that you don't have to avoid conflict or, solve your unsolvable problems to
Mhm.
be able to be happy in your relationship. Sometimes you just have to make peace with the fact that there are things you're going to be annoyed about.
Yeah.
There are going to be
Yeah.
things that you don't love about your partner and the way that they do things, your pet peeves and whatnot, or maybe their attitude about certain things.
Yeah.
But also, those things change over time.
The question really becomes is, would you want to be married to yourself? There have
Oh,
been
no.
moments I have actually thought about this. When we first started dating, as a highly,
Mhm.
highly actively outwardly ambitious person.
Yes.
And for you, you are ambitious, but you
Not
are
mm.
longevity
I
ambitious.
am not tip ambitious in your typical
Yes,
fashion.
fair. And so I had to ask myself, can I be in a relationship with somebody who does not have the same level of ambition that I have?
Mm.
Right. And when I think about it, and I'm like, but would I want to marry me? And I think about that, I'm like, oh God, no.
Yeah.
I do not want to marry myself.
Yeah.
And so that really, I think ultimately when we look at our relationship together,
Mhm.
I feel like we complement each other very, very, very well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've always been very, you know, forward stating that I'm very attracted to
Mhm.
driven, ambitious women. But I also recognize that the danger in that is having a partner who doesn't have respect for me because my ambition is different
Mhm. That's
or
true.
is not at the same level or that I don't have the same sort of drive.
Here's a question, speaking of
Mhm.
this topic, because I do think that this topic actually does impact a lot of couples, the ambitious
Mm,
partner versus not. And I don't really
sure.
think it's so much the ambitiousness, but it's the lack of, I don't want to say care, but the lack of always putting your partner first, right?
Mm.
Because I think that I would not necessarily say that I don't always put you first, but I wouldn't say that I always put you first. And or what does putting you first look like, I think is another good question, right? Because in
Mhm.
order to be ambitious, sometimes you have to put that ambition before your partner. It just depends on how you do it, I think.
Well, I mean, realistically, ambition is a time commitment, right?
Mhm.
So, what you're talking about is, are you able to balance the time you commit to your ambition with the time that you commit to your partner? And
Mhm.
there certainly have been times where you have been very apologetic towards me because of, oh, I'm sorry, I have this thing on a Saturday night. I know we usually spend time together then. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
And for me, it's really not a big deal because, we like live together and stuff. So I get to see you a good fair bit.
Yeah.
It's not like we're in this situation where you travel for business, half of the month, and then when you're home are making all these plans to go out and do these things.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would be different if that were the case,
Okay.
but it's not.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to recognize that you can have your ambitions and you can, be career driven and you can even be a workaholic to a certain degree,
Mhm.
but are you balancing that time and are you balancing your priorities appropriately?
Yeah.
Right? Because, yeah, sometimes you put the time you're going to spend on business ahead of the time you spend with me, but like, it's one thing to do that on a regular weekend. It's another thing to do that like on my birthday weekend,
Yeah.
right? Like you have to be conscientious of what is important to your partner and prioritize and make sure that things align correctly
Mhm.
and be aware of the way that things need to align to make sure that that balance stays intact.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the amount of time, it's the specific timing.
I also kind of look at it too, like quality over quantity,
Mhm.
right? To me, I don't feel that spending time with, okay, so yes, we do this quite a bit, but I don't feel like spending time with you just sitting next to each other on a couch watching TV or being on our phones
Mhm.
really is the best way to spend time versus being able to really connect and engage with you, whether that be taking you out or doing playing card games or games here. I think depending on the length of time that it has to be spent in ambition, now that means you also need to recognize what kind of quality are you giving to the time that you're not in ambition, you
Right.
know? But don't
Yes.
get me wrong, I do appreciate watching watching TV with you.
Well, when we're watching something together and
Yeah.
judging it together.
Yes.
But yeah, we should come up with an equation like quality of time plus in level of mental engagement,
Mm,
mental and emotional engagement,
yeah.
you know,
Bringing in those love languages.
plus exactly, exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about perpetual problems. The other thing that we're going to talk about is what happens when you have a perpetual problem that doesn't shake out, right? So basically, on page 140, I'll read a passage. In unstable marriages, perpetual problems like these eventually kill the relationship. Instead of coping with the problem effectively, the couple get gridlocked over it. They have the same conversation about it over and over again. They just spin their wheels, resolving nothing. Because they make no headway, they feel increasingly hurt, frustrated, distrustful of each other. And also, the four horsemen become ever more present when they argue, while humor and affection become less so. They grow all the more entrenched in their positions. Gradually, they feel psychologically overwhelmed. When a couple face gridlock, they may attempt to improve the situation by slowly isolating or enclosing the problem area. For example, by tacitly agreeing not to notice it or discuss it. They may say, let's just agree to disagree. They shove it under the rug, but it becomes, in the words of our great poet, Robert Creeley, a place where the rug bunches. As much as they try to remember to sidestep that place on the rug, they trip over it again and again. Avoiding conflict over a perpetual problem leads to emotional disengagement. The couples trust in each other, and the relationship declines as they become increasingly trapped in the negativity, the Roach Motel for lovers. As the gridlock worsens, they each come to feel that the other is just plain selfish and cares only about him or herself. They may still live together, but are on the course toward leading parallel lives and inevitable loneliness. The death knell for any marriage.
Say it, Dr. Gottman and Nan.
Mm-hmm.
Say it.
Can I
Yeah,
just say,
loneliness is kind of the death knell
it is
for sure. Can you say what?
this? So when I first read this book the first time,
Mm-hmm.
it was like reading the beginning was like reading my previous marriage, and then the middle bits was like reading our relationship. And
All the
then,
good bits, you mean?
yes, all the good bits. But this truly is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
100%. The gridlock, you sweep it under the rug, you don't talk about it, then it becomes this whole thing. And so if you have perpetual problems, you're going to have to just talk about them all the time, but ultimately
Yeah.
find a way to deal with it in lightheartedness and humor.
Yeah. Basically. I mean, you don't. So I think on page 141, Dr. Gottman and Nan say like the signs of gridlock. And I have to say, like, the first one that they list, quote, the conflict makes you feel rejected by your partner, end quote.
Mm.
I think that that is such a key point that, like, you can have a perpetual issue, but there's a difference between, like, being annoyed over not agreeing on a thing
Mm-hmm.
and feeling like your partner is rejecting you over an issue,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's really important to address. I mean, you need to address it anyway, but you have to address it, especially if it's starting to make you feel
Mm-hmm.
rejected,
Yeah. I think
right?
sometimes that rejection feeling can come with criticism,
Yes.
right? Which we discussed many, many chapters ago, which was part of the Four Horsemen. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are the other signs of gridlock?
Another sign of gridlock is, quote, you keep talking about it but make no headway, which, yeah, perpetual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, quote, you become entrenched in your positions and are unwilling to budge, end quote. I feel the same way about that one as I feel about the previous. Like, no headway, neither of you are willing to budge. Yeah, that's what makes it a perpetual problem, but I don't know that that's necessarily terrible.
I will say that this third bullet, you become entrenched in your positions and are unwilling to budge. I've said this before on this podcast. Love him or hate him, I did appreciate Dr. Phil when he would say, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Because
Yeah,
really, I feel like that's what this boils down to,
kinda.
you know?
Well, I saw a good one, I think earlier today actually. Do you want to be right or do you want to get it right?
Ooh, I like that even better.
Right?
That's so good.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
mean, not that I can really take credit, but yeah, but that's the thing is getting it right means getting the situation right,
Mhm.
right? Which means having true understanding of the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Just being right means holding your position and not budging, right? And I guess going back to bullet 2 about, talking about it making no headway, I think even if you make no headway in solving the issue, you can make headway and you can be willing to budge in viewing your partner's feelings about it and like understanding
Mhm.
where your partner's coming from and why your partner maybe feels the way that you do, and maybe it helps you adjust things, slightly here or there, even if it doesn't completely solve the problem. Maybe it helps you make some adjustments that make the problem not as big of a deal
Yeah, I
or
like
something
that.
like that,
That's a good perspective.
yeah. So another uh sign of gridlock from page 141. Your conversations about the problem are devoid of humor, amusement, or affection.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's hard. I think that goes back to feeling rejected by your partner.
Yeah.
Those are kind of, I would pair those together, and like it just doesn't feel good
Yeah.
when you're having to talk about it. And you haven't found a way to talk about it in a way that is emotionally neutral,
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
know? Another sign of gridlock, when you discuss the subject, you end up feeling more frustrated and hurt. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a rough one. That's a rough
Yeah.
one.
You know where I think that actually comes from?
Hmm.
And so, uh, like we had discussed, the difference between validating your partner and reassuring your partner,
Yes.
right? I think that the frustration and hurt come from listening to respond and not
Yeah.
listening to understand.
Yeah.
And if you are listening to understand, sorry, I just thought about it, understand, right?
Hmm.
Um, I think that there's a lot of ways that you can avoid that frustration and hurt because you're actively hearing what your partner's saying. You're actively empathizing and placing yourself in their position and
Yeah.
trying to understand why that makes sense to them,
Right.
right? Or at least assuring them that, you know what, I hear what you're saying, but I don't feel that way and I still love you anyway. Even though you might have this viewpoint over me, I love you and that doesn't change anything, you
Y-
know?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Real quick, I'll read the last three signs of gridlock. You become even more unbudgeable over time, which leads you to vilify each other during these conversations. Uh, this vilification makes you all the more rooted in your positions and polarized, more extreme in your views, and even less willing to compromise. And the last sign of gridlock, eventually, you disengage from each other emotionally.
Hmm.
So they wrap this section up on 141 by saying, if this sounds painfully familiar, take comfort in knowing that there is a way out of gridlock no matter how entrenched. As you'll see when we get to Principle 6, all you need is motivation and a willingness to explore the hidden issues that are really causing the gridlock.
Mm.
So,
Can I just tell you, I remember what that is. I actually really appreciate the activity for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, don't
I'm
give
not going to
us
give it
any
away. I'm not going to
spoilers
give it
because
away.
we haven't gotten that far yet with the audience. And I'm with
Okay.
you, audience. I haven't gotten that far either in the 7 principles for making marriage work.
Okay. So we've talked about perpetual problems. We've
Mm-hmm.
talked about a problem can be solvable, and there is a difference between the two. 69% of problems are actually perpetual. If you keep it, if you maintain that kind of perpetualness and don't know how to address it correctly, it can come to gridlock, which ultimately leads to disengagement and the nail in the coffin. So, in the workbook, it goes over this. It says, in every relationship, there are two types of conflict, solvable and perpetual. Both types of conflict can cause a great deal of pain. The goal of perpetual problem is not to solve it, because by definition, it is an ongoing problem, The goal is to be able to talk about it in a constructive way where both partners' perspectives, feelings, and beliefs are understood. Research shows that the majority of conflicts experienced by couples fall into the perpetual category. This is true for both satisfied and distressed relationships. The good news is that you don't need to solve all of your problems to have a satisfying relationship. You do, however, need to be able to talk about them in a constructive way and figure out how to make peace with your differences or reach partial or temporary solutions. So, what is a perpetual problem? As we know, it's an ongoing problem that's rooted in differences of personalities, styles, beliefs, and values. A solvable problem tend to be situational in nature and are often tied to specific circumstances where a solution to the problem is possible. Once solvable problems are resolved, you can move on without having to address the issue again.
Yes.
So the workbook then gives you 4 specific questions to determine if they are solvable or perpetual. Shall I test you?
Yes, do.
Okay, audience, as you're listening, test yourself. See if you get these right.
All right.
Okay. Scenario 1. Elise wants to spend less time with Joel and more time with her friends. Joel says this makes him feel abandoned. Elise says that she needs time away from him. He seems very needy to her and she's feeling suffocated by him. Is this solvable or perpetual?
I'm going to say perpetual. She needs more space. He needs more together time. That's like a constant push and pull.
Okay. So in my workbook, I also put perpetual. The reason I put perpetual was because Joel feeling abandoned, that felt like more of a values or a belief or like a deeper issue than just my girlfriend doesn't want to hang out with me. So that's why I put perpetual. But then also I could see if that's how he feels, that it was going to keep going on and on.
Yeah.
Anytime she didn't spend time with him.
Yeah, and I could just see where, like, it comes across that he's a person that wants to spend 90% of their free time together, and she's a person who wants to spend 50% of their free time together. And I think that kind of mismatch can, like, it's always gonna be a mismatch.
Yeah. All right, listeners, message us or put it in the comments of the podcast episode and let us know how many you actually get correct when it comes to this little task. So the answer is, it is perpetual. This problem suggests a core difference between Elise and Joel and their personalities and what they need from each other to feel close and connected. The difference is unlikely to change. They'll need to adjust it. Okay. Are you ready? Scenario number 2. Listeners, here we go. Helena gets together with her friends every Monday night. Jonathan wants her to take a class together with him, but the class is only held on Monday nights. Helena doesn't want to give up her girls' night out. Is this solvable or perpetual?
I say this is solvable. I'm assuming this class doesn't go forever. But even if it does, you can still have girls' night, even if it's not on Mondays. He's not saying, I want you to never go out with your girlfriends. He's saying, I really want to do this thing. It's Monday nights. Well, you can shift things. Maybe you can find a class offered through a different organization that's on a different night. You know, that's a solvable problem for sure.
Yeah, I put solvable as well. He's not being a Joel about it. The answer is solvable. Helena and Jonathan can resolve this issue in a number of ways. Perhaps they could switch off weekly between class and Helena's girls' night out, or maybe her friends would be willing to switch the night, or Jonathan could find another class on another night or on the weekend, or one of them could simply agree to sacrifice one of these activities.
Exactly.
Okay, are you ready?
Third one?
Third one.
Okay.
Mike just inherited $2,000 from his great aunt. He wants to use it to buy home exercise equipment. But Mary thinks he should save it for a down payment on a house. Mike says the inheritance is really not enough to make a dent in a down payment, so why not use it for something they could enjoy right away? But Mary believes that every little bit adds up and they have to save as much as they can all the time. Solvable or perpetual?
To me, this is a solvable problem because it's a finite amount of money. You're going to choose to put it towards one thing or another. A choice is going to be made, and that's going to be the end of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, it could point to a deeper perpetual problem of how you view money. I just don't think that it necessarily has to in this particular situation.
Okay, so I did get this one wrong because I did pick perpetual
Mm.
because I really thought about it and I was like, this is actually solvable. But then my brain was like, but listen, if Mary's getting all up in her pants about $2,000 right now, what happens when there's bigger money issues?
That's
Or
so funny
so
because I was like, why does he want to spend money on exercise equipment if they don't even own a house right now? And like, what a silly thing to waste money on when she's right. Every little bit does count. Love you.
I love you too. You were correct. It is solvable. Mike and Mary may have different philosophies about saving, but their conflict over money doesn't appear to be symbolic. Instead, it's a straightforward difference of opinion about what to do with Mike's inheritance. For that reason, they could probably find a straightforward compromise. Perhaps, for example, they could spend some of the amount on equipment and save the rest.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Fitty fitty.
That's fair. I'll just my brain was like, oh God, y'all can't even agree about $2,000 right now. Oh, you're going to have some major league problems. And I think the other reason I said it too is because Mary's belief that every little bit adds up, that felt real
nitpicky to you.
Cheap.
Isn't
and
this
I only
funny
say that,
because...
but wait, I only say that in the context of as a person who listens to Ramit, because he talks about the difference between being cheap and frugal. Right.
Well, I find it interesting because didn't we just have a disagreement over $2,000? Like whether we could each individually contribute $2,000 or not towards the gutter and fascia project?
We did. But also, we are very well established.
So did you just call me cheap?
In our spending habits. We're very well established in the way in which we view money and how we talk about money. And I think that we have a really good grasp on our goals together. But yeah. Number 4, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Sarah thinks Ryan is stingy about tipping waiters, cab drivers, and so on. This upsets her because part of her image of a strong, sexy man is someone who is generous. When she's disappointed with Ryan, she gets very contemptuous of him. Meanwhile, Ryan believes that Sarah is too loose with their money and which makes him nervous. To him, money represents security and a sense of control over his life, so it's hard to give any of it up. Perpetual or solvable?
I go with perpetual. However, I actually think that I could solve this problem.
Ooh. Okay, I also selected perpetual for this one. Before we give the answer, how would you solve this problem?
Well, I think that the problem inherently lies in how he's viewing these specific expenses. Like he's viewing that going out to a restaurant, that the tip is extra instead of viewing it as part of the experience of going out and therefore accounting for that expense as part of the expense of going out. Because that, like, I also don't like parting with money and think that it's better to be frugal and whatnot, but I also don't cheap out on tips because to me we live in a country where it's somebody's livelihood.
We live in a country where waiters don't make a livable wage in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to me, like, accounting for the tip with going out is just automatic anyway. And it's automatic to say 20%, and like that may change based on the service, but that's the
Yeah.
Like, I just automatically assume I'm going to be spending that amount. And so if he could view that, like, okay, to her 20% would be generous as opposed to the 15 he's been doing, then if he rethinks his view on what it costs to go out,
Mm-hmm.
then it makes a difference,
Very
right?
true.
But if she wants him to be generous in, all kinds of ways, and tipping people who don't necessarily rely on tips, or
Mm-hmm.
in places where it wouldn't necessarily be standard to tip, well, yeah, that's maybe a little bit more perpetual.
Yeah.
But her contemptuousness and his, like, view is why I call it a perpetual problem. But I do
Mm.
think that a perspective shift could go a long way in solving that for them.
Yes. That's very insightful, and you are correct and accurate, I believe, with that. But also let us remember contempt is
Yeah.
one of the four horsemen.
Yeah.
So like not doing so good if we're doing that. But
Yeah.
you are correct. It is a perpetual problem. Money has very different meanings to Ryan and Sarah. Since the symbolic significance of money is usually rooted in childhood experiences, it's unlikely that Ryan will naturally transform into a big tipper or that Sarah will suddenly learn to love clipping coupons. But if they work together on this perpetual problem, and especially if Sarah's contempt for her husband and especially Sarah's contempt for her husband about the issue, it will
Hmm.
cease to be a major sore spot in their relationship.
Yeah. See, and that's where I guess those, like,
There are
back to those
more.
points. Yeah, there's a lot more examples that you can check, but what I would definitely say is that, like, going back to the gridlock,
Mhm.
that being able to discuss the subject and feeling hurt and frustrated, I could see where that last situation you gave, that could definitely result in a lot of conversations where both party feels frustrated and hurt. He would feel like she's frivolous, or doesn't care about the security of their future the way that he
Mhm.
does. She
Mhm.
thinks that he's being deliberately obtuse about not tipping, and that he is being stingy, and that is unattractive to her.
Can I pause you for a second?
Please do go for it.
So this actually is the perfect point to page 142,
Mm,
the second paragraph under telling the difference.
mm,
For example, for years, Eleanor has been arguing with her husband, Miguel, that he drives too fast. He always tells her the same thing, that he's never had an accident. He's an assertive driver, not an aggressive one. She ends up yelling that he's selfish and doesn't care that his speeding scares her. He retorts the real problem is her lack of trust in him. Each time they have this squabble, they feel all the more frustrated and hurt and entrenched in their positions. There's a lot of vilifying on both sides. For this couple, speeding constitutes a perpetual problem they will probably never fully resolve. They are really arguing big issues like trust, security, and selfishness. To keep
mm.
their ongoing battles, over driving from ruining their marriage, they need to understand the deeper meaning that this battle has for each of them. So when you
Yes.
hear, right, so
Mm-hmm.
Eleanor says that it scares her, the
Yeah.
question shouldn't be, oh, you just don't trust me, or the statement shouldn't be, oh, you don't trust me. The question should be, why does that scare you?
Right.
Right? Is it because she knew somebody who got hurt in an accident? Is it because she's been in an accident? Is it because she, had a friend who had a family member? Like, whatever the reason,
Sure.
right? But what is it about her? And then why is he so adamant to believe that she doesn't trust him because of his driving?
Well, and why is he so adamant about speeding when she's in the car with him, when he knows that she doesn't like it?
Also that. Also that.
You know, I
So,
mean, you could argue that it's such an ingrained habit that it would be hard to remember, but if she's complaining about it the whole time, probably should be able to remember.
yeah. So
But that's my
really,
personal opinion.
yeah. But like you were talking about, that is one of those things where there is a deeper conversation that needs to happen about this
Absolutely.
perpetual problem.
Absolutely. And I think the important thing when you're looking at your problems of, is it solvable, is it perpetual, the important thing to look at is the underlying reason
Mhm.
that this issue is an issue,
Mhm.
right? Why is this important to you? It's important to both of you on both sides of it, but why?
Yeah.
Why is it important to you? What feeds into that importance? Is it as important to you or more important to you than it should be?
Well, and that leads to the other fact of, right, like sometimes perpetual problems are just annoyances. So it
Yeah,
might not even be that deep, right?
yeah.
Like
I can live with your socks.
tidiness.
Yeah, I can live with your socks being strewn about. It's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
We don't have any pets that eat socks and are going to have some sort of bowel obstruction that's going to require surgery,
Because God knows
you
that's
know.
expensive.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are people whose lifestyles, they have good reason for that to be a much
Mhm.
more serious issue. For
Mhm.
us, it's not,
Not a
because
big
our
deal.
lifestyle doesn't make it a serious issue,
Yeah.
right? But that again, looking at the underlying, why is this important?
Mhm.
Looking at, oh, well, you don't care because you leave your socks around, you don't care that the dog could eat them.
Yeah.
Well, the dog's never eaten socks before. Why would I be worried?
Yeah.
But you really have to explore those things and really look at it outside of just your own view, but the outside implications as well.
Yeah. So, one of the things for people to know is if you are interested in the book, on page 143 starts 10 scenarios for you to better understand perpetual versus solvable problems. And I do believe two or three of the ones that we read are actually in that list, but
Yes,
not all of them. So,
correct.
you do have the ability to also do that as well. But
Mm-hmm.
then after that, on page 148, oh, okay. I forgot. Did you do this in the book?
I did do this
You
in the book.
did? Do you want to go over it?
Did you do this in the
I
book?
did.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So
what
I'm
we're here for, right? To
okay.
show people how it's done.
All right. So on page 148, after you move through the process of determining somebody else's solvable or unsolvable problems with scenarios, you then get to have your own questionnaire assessing your own marital conflicts.
Mhm.
So the instructions say, now that you have a greater understanding of the differences between solvable and perpetual problems, it's time to categorize your own marital issues in this way. By doing so, you'll know which strategies to use to cope with them. Below is a list of 17 common causes of conflict in marriage. For each, mark whether it's a perpetual problem in your marriage or a solvable one for you, or not a problem right now. If it is either a solvable or perpetual problem, check all of the specific sub areas that you think are currently troublesome.
Mm.
Here we go.
All right.
Should we? Okay.
I think we should just give our answer first,
Okay.
obviously.
Okay.
Okay. And we remember we did do this a couple weeks ago.
We did do this a couple weeks
But so
ago.
there's been a couple weeks between reading and recording for this episode, which is unusual, but here we
Okay.
are.
Okay. On the count of three, do you want to say it together? What you checked?
Sure.
Okay. We are becoming emotionally distant. One, two, three. Perpetual.
Solvable.
Oh,
You think that we have a perpetual problem of being emotionally distant?
I do.
Oh, because that's your response to conflict?
Sometimes, a lot of times, yes.
Oh. Yeah, I put it as solvable um in the specific items below that are problem within this general area. I checked the first two.
Mm-hmm.
Did you?
I checked the second. Okay, so the first two are that you checked.
We have difficulty just simply talking to each other, and we are less in touch with each other emotionally.
Okay, so I selected three. I
Mm-hmm.
picked that we are less in touch with each other emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
I put feel taken for granted. And then my spouse is or I am emotionally disengaged.
I also checked that one.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay.
But I did not check that I feel taken for granted. I did not check I feel my spouse doesn't know me right now. And I did not check that we spend less time together.
Okay.
My comments were my spouse was emotionally disengaged but has taken recent steps to re engage. So
Okay.
for me, we actually did this during the time in which you were not really talking to me
Mm-hmm.
and before I kind of called you out for that
Mm-hmm.
and you started talking to me again.
Mm. I didn't actually write any comments, but I remember why I checked what I checked. So, less in touch, which we know. I did check, I feel taken for granted. And I think that stemmed from just kind of, I know that the last 6 months have been very difficult.
Hmm.
And you had all the things go on with your mom. And I know that also you were moving or reevaluating your medication,
Mm-hmm.
and your previous medication really wasn't working anymore. And so I think I checked feeling taken for granted because we had gotten off of our rhythm of how we operated together within the household,
Hmm. Yeah.
which
Well,
I had actually said something to you about it.
yeah, and I think that's fair that you would feel taken for granted, regardless of how appreciative I may have been. Uh, I could see where me not upholding my end of my responsibilities
Hmm.
within the house would make you feel taken it for granted when you are fulfilling your
Yeah.
responsibilities.
I think it's also
So I can
important
definitely see that.
to talk about too that this is not, it's also not lost on me that there's
Hmm.
reasons of why these
Yeah,
things were occurring, but that
sure.
doesn't mean that your feelings don't happen, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that your feelings aren't valid.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, there are reasons that wasn't doing a good job upholding my end of household responsibilities, but it's absolutely valid and reasonable for you to feel taken and for granted
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah. And then my spouse is or I am emotionally disengaged. That was personally myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was also talking about
Fair enough.
you.
Question number 2. There is spillover of non marital stress, such as job tension, into our marriage. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Solvable.
Solvable.
Good.
Yes.
What areas did you check?
Only the first one.
Which is?
We don't always help each other reduce daily stresses.
Okay. I checked that one as well, but I
Okay.
also checked my spouse takes job stress or other tensions out on me.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that was really more so. I wouldn't say that like you were taking it out on me in this very overt fashion, but I do think that that because we have such a safe space within our relationship, I think that some of that was directed at me when it
Mm.
couldn't be
Some of
directed
the frustration, yeah.
where it couldn't be directed where it needed to go.
Certainly. Certainly. I can understand that.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 3.
Number 3. Our marriage is becoming non romantic and passionless. The fire is dying.
1, 2, 3. Solvable.
Solvable. Okay. What did you check?
I
In
checked.
did you
I checked
check
3.
did you check any of the first 3 that are still on page
I
149?
did. I checked
Okay.
my spouse has stopped being verbally affectionate.
I checked that one as well.
Okay. Did you check any of the others?
I also checked my spouse expresses love or admiration less frequently.
Mm, okay. The other one I checked was my spouse or I have stopped feeling very romantic.
Mm. I checked we have few tender or passionate moments.
I checked that one as well.
Mm.
Okay. Any comments, questions, concerns about these boxes?
No, I mean I think it all really stems from the lack of um sexual intimacy that we've been having and
Mhm.
the different kind of, I guess, results of that. Because
Yeah.
I think that a lot of these are side effects of us not having sex, if
Yeah.
I'm honest about it.
I think
Like
that's very fair.
being verbally affectionate, side effect of not having sex. Expressing love or admiration less frequently, same thing.
Yeah.
Stop feeling romantic, having few tender, passionate moments. I think all of that is an effort of not teasing something that it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think we're working through all of that
Mhm.
and doing
Agreed.
doing pretty well at it. So,
Agreed.
right.
Number 4, we are having problems in our sex life.
Oh my
1,
God,
2,
it's
3.
solvable.
Solvable.
It's almost like we just talked about this.
Crazy.
Um, yeah. So I checked again, I checked 3 of these.
I checked 4.
Okay.
4 out of 6.
I checked the first one, sex is less frequent.
Same.
I checked the second one, at least one of us gets less satisfaction from sex.
Same.
I did not check we have problems talking about sexual problems.
I did not either.
I did check each of us wants different things sexually.
Same.
Uh,
And I checked desire is less than it once was.
mm,
But we did not check our love making feels less loving. Did you check that?
no.
Okay.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But I also didn't check that desire is less, so.
Mm. I checked it because I mean, I knew that it was not mine. I checked it primarily thinking about you. Like
Mm.
I felt like your desire for me was less than it was.
Oh. And I don't think that my desire for you was less, just my desire for sex was less,
Mm.
which are to me very different things. But
But
anyway,
but but I would still say that's true then. Desire is less than it once was. So your desire for me was not, but your desire for sex is, and that was really the question was about sex life.
okay, fair enough.
Yeah. We're
Fair enough.
working on it.
Indeed. Okay, 5. Our marriage is not dealing well with an important change, such as birth of a child, job loss, move, illness, death of a loved one, etc.
1, 2, 3.
Not a
Solvable.
problem right now. What?
Solvable.
What important changes are marriage not dealing with?
Okay, remember this was a couple weeks ago.
Okay, yeah.
The important change that our marriage was not dealing well with was the issues with your mom or your
Oh.
family. Like I feel like a lot of like when we're talking about change, right? Because it's an important change.
Mm,
I feel like a lot of the things that had bled into our marriage
yeah.
has that stemmed from that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And I put this event has led my partner to be very distant, and this event has made us both irritable. Was what I checked.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't check it because I was at the point where I was like, I'm done with this. So I just looked at it like it's not really a problem now because it's done and over with and
Mm,
whatnot. But I can understand your perspective, and it did make both of us irritable, and it did make me distant. I
yeah,
feel like
I feel
I'm
like
recovering from that distance now.
yeah, I feel like when we went over this, like you had just kind of made those decisions,
Yeah,
and so things hadn't really settled yet.
that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair.
Okay. Number 6. Our marriage is not handling well a major issue about children. 1, 2, 3. Not
Not
a
a
problem
problem
right
right
now.
now.
There.
Yeah.
7.
Our marriage is not handling well a major issue or event concerning in laws or another relative.
1, 2, 3. Solvable.
Solvable.
What did you check under those?
This issue has generated a lot of irritability.
That's the only one I checked.
I mean, yeah, the issue with family, I think, just like we were talking about yesterday, about how, like, man, it sucks that we are estranged from my parents right now because my stepdad and your uncle would get along together so well, and
They
your
really
uncle could,
would.
and they could both use a social outlet. And,
Yeah.
like, what a great thing for both of them that would be. But here we are, you
Yeah.
know? So it's like those little things that make me irritable. Like, ugh, why do they have to suck so much right now?
That's fair. 8. One of us is flirtatious outside the marriage or may have had a recent affair or there is jealousy. 1, 2, 3. Not
Not
a
a problem
problem
right
right now.
now. 9. So on page 152, last one, unpleasant fights have occurred between us.
1, 2, 3. Not a
Not a
problem
problem
right
right
now.
now. So there are more questions to assess the state of your marriage. Um, we just went through the first 9. Well, let's round it out and do the first 10
That's fair.
out of the 17 that there are.
Mm-hmm.
Number 10, we have differences in our basic goals and values or desired lifestyle. 1, 2, 3.
Not a
Not a
problem
problem
right
right
now.
now. And I think that was something we talked a lot about before we got together, or in the early stages of our
Mm-hmm.
relationship. What lifestyle do you want to have? What does this look like? What are your goals? And it's something that we revisit fairly often too, or what are our goals? We were just talking about, what are the things that you're really committed to over the next few years, and what could you see changing over the next few
Mm-hmm.
years?
Yeah.
We were just having that discussion. So I think that, you know, our goals and values and lifestyle are all things that not only do we generally agree on, but the
Mm-hmm.
things that change are things that we, are very open about talking about and consistently sharing and developing together.
I would agree with that. And you're not wrong. And I think as our listeners continue to join us in our podcast, they'll begin to really have a good understanding of our relationship and how we do talk to each other and the dynamics that we have within our relationship. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
but for those who were listening, now remember, there were 17 total questions. We only went through 10. The last ones are fine. But for scoring, for each of the general areas that cause you problems, count up the number of specific bones of contention that you've checked. If you marked
Mm.
more than 2, then this is an area of significant conflict in your marriage. For solvable problems, you'll find advice on chapter 9. But if some of your problems are perpetual, follow the advice in chapter 11 as well. No doubt you'll discover that your marriage, like most, is coping with both types of problems.
Mm. It's so interesting because the things that we did check as being perpetual or solvable, we had 3 or more
Yeah.
of the, like, sub issues checked.
That's true.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that minor conflict, major conflict, any conflict at all within marriage, like, it's going to happen. We always tell people, like, we don't really fight.
No, we really don't.
And we don't fight, but that does not mean that we don't have conflict in our marriage. It
Truth.
just We just don't choose to engage with each other in a fashion that looks like a fight.
Mm-hmm.
For us, all of these, issues or conflicts that we have in our marriage, they're just discussions.
Yeah.
Even sometimes, even if they do get heated, we generally start laughing if we get loud because it's so uncommon for us to get loud that it's like,
Yeah.
why are you yelling at me right now? And then we just start laughing at each other because we both feel like it's just never that serious.
Yeah. I think the other thing, too, no, we don't really fight with each other. We do have conflict. We don't allow it to get overly
Contentious?
contentious.
I mean, we are always very respectful, but we're also both pretty calm and logical about addressing our conflicts.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. And even though just in that last segment I had talked about where I do tend to, I wouldn't say stonewall, but I do tend to not share my feelings sometimes. It ultimately gets to a point where I will talk about it. It just is later rather than sooner, which you do not appreciate.
Well, it's not even that I don't appreciate it. It's that the uncertainty of not understanding what it is that you're in thought about is unsettling for me. Even knowing that you're upset with me and what you might be upset with me about is much more reassuring to me than feeling like there's a vibe in the house that I can't really put my finger on or that I don't really understand the cause of. And I think that really just goes back to like having so many unsafe relationships in the past. Like that's just, that level of uncertainty is just very unsettling for me.
Yeah.
In a way that's hard to logic past.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Which is so fascinating because you don't like the uncertainty and I think it's really the not really knowing what your reaction's going to be, but also not wanting to have to talk about it in depth either, especially, and I have said this before, especially if there doesn't seem like there's going to be a solution for it.
Yes, you really don't like to talk about things that you don't think there's a solution for. But also, I can understand that because there are a lot of times that you ask me a lot of questions and I'm like, wow, I don't want to get that deep into it right now. And so I can understand where you would be kind of sitting with that in the back of your mind. But I think that's where it's hard to explain, like, I don't need a full conversation about it. I don't even need an in-depth understanding. If you just give me kind of the gist of it, that's all I need to feel a little bit more settled. And it doesn't need to be an entire conversation, but I understand how hard it is both to hear any of that and not want to start a conversation, but also to say anything in an effort to not start a conversation.
You know, something else that just occurred to me?
What's that?
Is that for as much as you need to know that I'm upset and why I'm upset, I need to know just as much about the situation, but you tend to be a person who is very much, I need to think on that. I'm going to mull it over, which can sometimes be a couple of days. And so I think for me, it really is just like, I don't want to have to also sit in this limbo of when is she going to have her decision? When is she going to
but
know
you
what
know
she
what it
feels?
is that I'm talking about.
And
but you
all
know
these
what I'm
other
mulling
things.
over. That's the difference.
Yeah,
You
but
know what it is.
but what I'm saying to you is that the way that you feel about knowing what it is exactly how I feel and not having a deeper explanation.
Ah, I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Again, perpetual problems. Here we are.
Indeed.
Well, thank you for joining us on this one. We will be covering our next chapter, chapter 9, which is a principle of something.
A principle of marriage, since that's what the book is called.
Chapter 9 is principle 5, solving your solvable problems.
Ah, yes. So next time on the Love Spark podcast, we will look at how to solve our solvable problems.
Until next time.
Indeed.
Before we sign off, here is an upcoming opportunity from Love Spark. Join us at Lansing Pride on June 27th from 1 to 9 p.m. and we'll have a special release just for Pride.
Once again, we want to thank all of our fabulous listeners for joining us this week on the Love Spark podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Along with subscribing, please remember to visit us at milovespark.com, follow us at Lovespark Dates on Instagram and Facebook, and join us again next week for another fabulous episode.
Indeed.